Hey everyone, Nicholas here and welcome back to my channel. Alright, welcome back to another video, and this video is actually part of a new series that I'm starting, which is called What I Learned From. And in this series, typically I'll talk about the key insights or key points that I've from a book that I recently read. So it doesn't have to be a book technically, it could be anything, but mainly I guess it would still be a book. So in this video, as the title suggests, I'm going to talk about the book Think Again, which is written by Adam Grant. And this book is actually quite interesting. So this book, okay, maybe a brief intro about the books first before we go into the points. So this book is actually talking about, the title suggests, about thinking again. Like, oftentimes when we go about our life, our daily lives, we don't really question the things we do in our daily life. We don't go and stop. We don't go. Sorry, not don't go. We don't stop back. We don't stop for a while and go and rethink about the things that we are doing. Like, we sort of accept things as it is. Like, what is necessarily true back then doesn't necessarily mean that it's still valid right now, right? So that's just one of the example. And especially nowadays, when things are changing very rapidly due to the technology disruption. So this book is sort of like trying to remind us of the importance of being able to rethink about the stuff that we are doing in our daily lives, like our perceptions, our assumptions, things like that. And yeah, maybe one of the example actually quoting from the book is the boiling frog anecdote. I believe we have, most of us have heard it somewhere, but if you haven't, so I'll just quickly explain it. So basically, the boiling frog anecdote is talking about if we put a frog, if you drop a frog into a boiling pot, it will jump out directly. But if you put it, or if we drop it in the lukewarm water and heat it gradually, it will boil to death. So sounds logical, right? It actually really sounds logical. We can get it, we get the concepts. But turns out it's not true. That's not the fact. You can actually Google it up. There are actually some researchers go and try out this anecdote, and they find out that even if you drop it on the lukewarm water and heat it gradually, the frog still jumps out. But we have been accepting this anecdote as a valid assumption. Like, we just assume that it's true. So that's just one of the examples that the author actually provide in the book. There are still a lot of examples inside the books, but that's just one of it. So yeah, I personally think that this book is a really must read. Content wise, it's not that heavy. It's actually quite light, but even though it's quite light, right, but there's still a lot of key insights that we can learn from this book. And I've actually heard of this author quite several times, but this is actually the first book that I read from him. So maybe after this, I'll go and try to read some other books that he wrote. Alright, so that's the brief intro. So without further ado, let's jump into the key insights or the quotes from the books that I personally like the most. Alright, so first quote. As Danny told me, being wrong is the only way I feel sure I've learned anything. When I asked him how he stays in that mode, he said he refuses to let his beliefs become part of his identity. Here the author is actually introducing or talking about someone who enjoys finding himself being wrong, because according to this guy, whenever he found himself being wrong, he feels like he's now less wrong. So here we're being reminded of how most of us actually hate being wrong, let alone enjoy the discovery that we are actually wrong about something. And the author actually do explain in the book that why we do so and how should we overcome it. So maybe let me take another quote from the book. Attachment. That's what keeps us from recognizing when our opinions are off the mark and rethinking them. To unlock the joy of being wrong, we need to detach. We need to detach our present self from our past self, and also our opinion from our identity. So I think this part is really good because it really sort of like gives us an understanding, like why sometimes we kind of like hate being wrong. And this sort of like remind us that we should go and detach ourselves from that assumption, that idea of what our perception is on. We should detach our present self from our past self. So by doing so, we will be able to go and rethink what we are doing in our daily lives. Even though sometimes we feel like, we say that, oh, I'm not really somebody who can't accept that I'm wrong, but I think most of us still hate the idea of being wrong, and we oftentimes we might find ourselves trying so much to try to defend our position instead of go and rethink it. So I guess this is again really good reminder for us to go and rethink, and we should actually seek the truth. We should actually find the truth instead of holding on to the false perception. I think this is a very key things that we need to do, and it's also one of the key points that the author is trying to deliver in this book. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So the next quote is, psychologists have long found that the person most likely to persuade you to change your mind is you. You get to pick the reasons you find most compelling, and you come away with a real sense of ownership over them. So I think oftentimes we see debate like a war. There's like a winner, there's like a loser. So this is sort of like how we approach a debate most of the time. But this is actually the wrong way of approaching it. At least this is not the right mindset that we should have about debate. The author actually raises a lot of good points in this aspect, and he actually goes very in depth on the examples, which is very interesting. I highly suggest you guys to read on this book about this aspect. And if we actually go and take a step back and reflect about that statement, like we are actually the one who can convince ourselves, it's actually quite true. Because maybe let's reflect on maybe the debates that we have back then. If we do not really accept an idea, oftentimes what other people say will be sort of like meaningless as well, especially if we are sort of like being attacked by that notion or that idea, right? So I maybe have you ever been in that situation whereby you don't feel like something is right, you don't feel like something is right, but on the other hand you hate the idea of being attacked, and you just don't want to accept what the other party is just talking about. So I guess maybe at least for me, or maybe for most of us, we have been in this kind of situation at least once. So actually that statement is very true. Like when we reflect it, we are actually the one that can persuade ourselves, the one that can change our mind is ourselves. So yeah, I think this actually is a very good insight for the book, whereby if let's say we are in a debate, if we are entering the debate with the mindset of attacking people, with the mindset of there's a winner, there's a loser, chances are it won't be fruitful at all, because one, you won't, if let's say your perception is wrong, you won't be accepting the truth, you won't change your mind, and even let's say you are true, the other party might not be able to accept it because you're attacking them. You're not trying to convince them about your idea. It's like you're just attacking them, because and the proper way for you to convince them is actually let them to rethink, because only then they can accept your perception. Because like just like that statement saying, you are the only person that can change your mind, that can convince yourself, and the same applies for your, let's say the counterparty, basically the one that you're debating with, right? They are also the only one that can change their mind. They are also the only one that can convince themselves. So I guess this book is raising very good, I would say, ideas about this. And just a bit of snippet is he actually go and talk about an example from like a debate case that they're doing. So it's a very interesting insight. Can't point out all the good points here, but it's in the book, so it's really good. So I hope that gives you a bit of like the teaser to the ideas that the author is trying to deliver. Alright, so next on to the next point. So the third quote, a bad process with a good outcome is luck. A good process with a bad outcome might be a smart experiment. So I think this is also a very important point raised by this book, because especially nowadays, you see, we often place more attention to the results rather than the process. We care more about the results, to the extent that there's this saying that the end justifies the means. So if you think about it, it's actually quite scary. Like, I mean, frankly speaking, I can't exclude myself from this as well, because while I don't think I'm that extreme, I do care about the result slightly more than the process personally, at least up until I read this book. Maybe I need to change it as well. So for me, like I mentioned just now, I don't think I'm that extreme yet, because I sort of wanted both. I wanted the result and I wanted to know the process is actually proper. I wanted both to be good, right? Even though I place slightly more what did I say, more importance to the result rather than the process, right? But that being said, when I think the tricky part for me is that I'm not to the extent where I'm saying is the end justifies the means, but for me it's more like if I don't get the result, it means that my process is just not good enough. That's how my mindset is right now, which I don't think is really true. So personally, when I'm reading this book, it sort of like challenges me to sort of like question my own values, my own ideology, or my own ideals on how I deal with things lah. So this is very interesting, because when let's say we wanted to explore something new, we wanted to go and rethink about something, we wanted to find out the truth, and when we're exploring, there's no guarantee that we'll always end up with the results that we wanted. We can't be sure 100% that the results will be a good thing, right? That we can hit the result of the goal that we have already set up for. So that's why this is very good reminder, being that, you know, a bad process with a good outcome is luck. Because a lot of times people are just trying to focus on the end without focus on the processes, and this is clearly not sustainable. This is not sustainable because, like the quote mentioned just now, a bad process with a good outcome is basically a luck. We can't really repeat that luck, right? So what we should place more focus on is actually being able to accept a bad outcome but with a good process as a smart experiment. So yeah, I guess this is even more important, like I mentioned, nowadays, especially nowadays, because the world tends to place a lot more focus on the results, when I think we need to step back a bit in order for us to be able to rethink all the possible consequences, all the considerations and stuff like that. So yeah, just this is a very good reminder for us. Like, and maybe to sum this up, let's take another point from the book as well. So don't evaluate decisions based only on the results, but track how thoroughly different options are considered in the process. So here it clearly highlights that if we wanted to actually rethink about something, we should actually make room for sort of like failures, and we should actually sort of like accept a good process over only looking at the results. So yeah, I guess those are the 3 points that I wanted to share, which I think are the most interesting and most relevant to me personally. Technically, as you can see, they are not really, I would say, they aren't really the summary you can see, because these are just the points that I found very interesting from the book, and not necessarily, especially if you see the last point that I was talking about just now. It might not be that related to the concept of rethinking again. It still have some relation, because I mentioned just that if you wanted to rethink, you need to allow room for failure. But this particular quote is not like 100% or 80% related to the main message. Actually, it's like a side message that the author is actually bringing out, at least from my understanding. So as you can see here, this is clearly not the summary of the book. I'm just going to pick out the points that I found interesting, and I shared to you guys what I think is very important. And by no means this is summary, because there are just so many points that I highlighted actually, but because I feel like if I go and ramble on and on, it would be very boring. So I tried to pick up the most interesting one. Then hopefully you guys get some of the teaser. It gets you thinking, and it intrigues you to actually go and pick up the book and read the book. Or maybe you can go and also find the summary on other YouTube videos. I believe for this book there are actually some other YouTube videos that are talking about the summary of the book as well. So yeah, so these are just the 3 points. I try to limit the 3 points so that there are not so many points that I bring out in one video. And maybe, like I mentioned just so, there are a lot more points that I wanted to talk about. Maybe if I think that it's necessary, I'll create a new video, like a part 2 to this book, to just talk about some more other points that I find interesting. But see how, like, it really depends on maybe how this video does. I'm not sure, because I feel like I started a lot. Maybe during the editing I'll see how. And in case, you know, if there is any part where, let's say you read the book and you watch this video, you find out that there's some part of my understanding that's not correct, or I actually mentioned something wrong in the video, please feel free to leave a comment down below and let me know, so maybe I can clarify it, or maybe we can create another video, or maybe I check it out. But yeah, please let me know in case there's any misunderstanding of the concept from my side. And yeah, as a conclusion, I really think this book is a very good book. It's very insightful, and like I mentioned just now, there are a lot of points that I actually highlighted, but I can only bring out 3 of them that I feel most interesting and most relevant. So I highly suggest you guys go and check it out. Even for the points that I mentioned just now, they are not really complete yet. There are a lot of explanation details that you can go into the book and understand the concepts even better. Okay, so yeah, I guess that should be it. I don't want to spend too long again on the closing like I usually do. Maybe I've already done this in this video as well. Maybe I'll create another video to sort of explain why I created this series. And yeah, hopefully what I shared just now have been useful. Hopefully what I've shared have been useful. And I guess that should be it. I'm really sorry if I started a lot. Actually, this has been quite some time since the last time I created a video. So sort of like I'm trying to get into warm up again. So yeah, I'm not sure if in this couple of weeks I will shoot another more video. See how, depending on my schedule. It's quite tight actually right now, my schedule, because of my academic commitments and work commitments, stuff like that. So things are actually quite hectic these days. So I try to squeeze in a bit of time to shoot this video lah. So that's why actually it's been a while since I did a video and I started a lot. So either way, again, I'm closing this off. I hope it has been useful, it has been insightful, and see you guys again in the next video. See ya.